Ultimate Collectibles here with the craziest setup I've had to do to try and get this guy in frame. There are wires and lights, and the camera is all in a weird ass position, and obviously I'm standing and I'm scared to death that this table is gonna break. This is a monster. Words can't even describe what this is, but I'm gonna try in this review, so stay tuned for the review of The Death of Superman. Ultimate Collectibles here with 1/3 scale Prime 1 Doomsday exclusive. So first, as I said in the intro, I'm standing because I kind of have to. I am not sure about the focus. Hopefully the focus is good on him. It may be blurry on me. But the big problem I ran into is I had to set him in the middle of the table. The way this table is, I don't know if the weight could hold him on one side or the other. And on a side note, no idea what to do with my hands. So maybe I might keep moving them the whole time. Impractical Jokers, cling clang, shout out. So this is by far the most massive and heavy statue I have, with the exception of life-size Han Solo right here. And honestly, I feel like Doomsday may be heavier because I think it's all polystone. But this is from Prime 1. It is a 1/3 scale. I bought this because I have a ton of Prime 1 1/3 pieces in the DC line, from Batman to most of the villains, either ordered or on their way or already here. I'm pairing this with Hush Superman, so I think it'll go very well. This cost $15.99 for the exclusive. There are 500 of them made. The exclusive has this switch out head, which I'm going to review both heads. The collector's edition has this head, and there were 800 of the collector's edition made, and they priced $50 cheaper, I think. Shipping from Sideshow's factory in the US was $275. I can see why. The boxes were two of the biggest boxes I've ever gotten, and there were two of them, and the weight was unbelievable. I'm glad I had a all-you-can-eat Brazilian steakhouse for the protein, but I'm done. I'm worried about taking him down. He will sit on the floor. I don't know if there's a cabinet out there that can hold him, to be honest with you. He's just so big, so massive, so heavy. Very excited to have the piece. Prime 1 has been killing it lately. Everybody knows that. The two big boxes he came in, one contained the base and the two heads, and then one other small piece in there. I think I can't. Oh, the little front pedestal, which we'll look at in the review. The other box had his body. His bottom torso is one big piece, and then his top torso is another piece. Then it had the two pieces to the flag and the post-tension cable inside the cement that goes in. So other than the weight and the size, assembly is very easy, but I would not recommend doing this alone. I did it alone. It was horrid. It's horrid putting together, so it's an awesome statue, which we're going to look at, but putting it together is a nightmare, and I'm not looking forward to taking him apart to putting him where he's going to go. I don't know too much about Doomsday. I do remember when I was a child that he killed Superman. I would go to the comic book store every week, and the new comic came out that this guy killed Superman. So obviously Superman's main enemy. God, I need to learn to talk. You know, I speak in front of groups of thousands sometimes, and I have no problem articulating, but alone in the basement with my statues, gets freaky. So he kills Superman. He also did in the Batman vs. Superman flop. I said flop. And he's just an awesome creature of a lot of power. I don't know a lot of details anymore. I think he has some Kryptonian origins, at least he seemed to in the movie, but I don't remember the comics because I can barely remember what happened yesterday. But either way, it's an awesome concept and design. So talking about that, he is on a huge base The bottom is almost futuristic, almost like a spaceship of some type. And again, that kind of ties back to the Batman vs. Superman movie where he was made. And then the top of it is a bunch of rocks and rubble. It could be a street that he just landed on and destroyed. The different concrete and pebbles and the pillar in the back with the post-tension cable. He has Superman's cape kind of as a flag on the back because obviously he killed Superman, and he is lunging forward. He is aggressive. Both portraits show a sneering face. His feet, when we go over the sculpt and paint, are actually being picked up like he's walking. So he's in a walking pose. His left hand is a fist, his right hand is open, ready to grab something, so he's still in attack mode. Even though this is their museum masterline piece, so it's a museum pose, I could almost consider this an action dynamic pose. Almost, but not quite. So very cool concept. They knocked Doomsday out of the park, and I'm not diving into that until paint and sculpt, which is like in 60 seconds. But I think they really knocked him out of the park. My one complaint, and I don't know how they would fix it, is he does have a little bit of a seam line for his head, but again, with switch out heads, that's going to happen, and you wouldn't want to put a collar or anything on him. And then I don't know if it's because of the way I set it in, but there is a seam line on the back. So when I take this apart and move him to his permanent place, I'll see if I can fix that. And when I say back, I mean where his upper torso meets his bottom torso. But otherwise, the statue was flawless. So very happy about that, because I've had 4 pieces in the last 2 weeks shipped broken. And with everything that's popping out of here, I would think a lot can break. Paint and sculpt, we'll start at the bottom as we always do. So as I said, there's kind of this silver futuristic spaceship on the very bottom. I'm only showing pictures, not videos, because he is too hard to turn in videos. But it almost looks like a spaceship. This is pretty bland. It's nothing special. There's some tubing running around the sides and a few different shades of light silver. Nothing really impressive, but you really can't see it, especially if you keep this on the bottom, which I plan to. It'll be raised off the floor. So looks okay, no big deal. Moving up, they have this emblem in the front, and I assume this is his emblem. Someone can comment if I'm wrong. I don't like it. I think it's stupid. I think they should have just, it does come out, but then you have a little hole. I think they should have just left that off, but it's an interesting part of it. Then talking about the concrete and dust and broken pieces that he is smashing. First of all, I like how they sculpted it where it's coming out from where his footprints are, almost like he fell, 50 feet and landed there, or he's just taking monstrous steps that destroy the pavement beneath him. It's sculpted like real concrete, real brick. It looks really good. There's a lot of detail in there that they went out of their way to make sure that it looks like he's been trending over it. And the little pieces of broken pebble and dust and dirt, they look real. It looks like it could actually fall off. And not only the sculpt, but the way they painted it, there's different colors in there, from grays and blacks and browns and reds, and it's very well done, which I'd expect nothing less of Prime 1. And I love how it's scattered. It looks so real. Very good job. Then moving back to the concrete pillar that's coming up that he broke. Again, same lines, very good job. It looks like a real broken concrete pillar. My only complaint is it's hard to tell which post-tension cable goes where. They do have color coding, so I guess it's easy to tell what goes where, but it's hard to tell which direction they're supposed to be in. Some of them don't seem to go in all the way. I'm sure I'm just putting them in wrong, but it's a cool little effect. They feel a little cheap, but there's some good rusting color on there to make it look real, even though it feels cheap. I'm gonna go to Superman's cape, the flag right now. The pole is average, nothing really to write home about it, but this cape is awesome. It's extremely textured, and it has that bright red, but somehow they've been able to mix the paints in to look like it's darkened to give this more of a doom, no pun intended, a doom look. So very good job on the cape. I love the texture, I love the flow, I love the way it looks. I thought I would display this without it from the pictures. No way, definitely keeping it in there. Moving on to Doomsday's boots. I love what they did with these boots. So first of all, they're very well done. look real. There's some good sculpt into them to make it look like he's actually wearing boots with some traditional bends and folds. And the treads on the bottom have some of the mixed colors from the concrete below to really add to it. And then he's ripping out of these boots, so it's very reminiscent of Hulk, Bruce Banner transforming into Hulk, where his clothing can't contain him. Not only are there rips where the spikes are coming out, but there's other rips where you can tell he's just growing and getting bigger. Very, very cool. And then as we move up, his knees also have those spikes coming out, and the texture on those spikes make it look like stalactites or stalagmites in a cave, which is what Doomsday is known for. And he has those all over his body, which we're going to go over. But one thing I want to touch on right now is all over his skin is this clear glistening effect. And initially I thought, well, this looks like water. Why would there be water on him? But I don't think it's meant to be water, and it looks like water. I think it's meant to be some type of translucent resin that's on him from the transformation, almost like when a moth or a caterpillar comes out of a cocoon. So that's what it really reminds me of, and I think that's what they were going for, and it looks awesome. Very cool, like the XM Weapon X. But moving up, he has these really weird shorts, fully sculpted, by the way. Everything on the statue is fully sculpted, and there's some straps and buckles on them, and some weird metal plating that matches the top of his boots. But again, just like the boots, some really good job on the texture and the sculpt to make it look like real pants. And it's topped off by his belt that again matches the bottom cuffs and the tops of the boots. And then you can see he probably was wearing a shirt, because there's a bunch of fabric just hanging below it. So I assume that was the shirt he was wearing from his transformation. And again, it looks like tattered rags. And one cool thing about his clothing color, both his boots and his shorts, is how good of a job they did mixing in the green with blacks and some darker greens, and it looks really good, and it contrasts his skin perfect. Then moving up to his torso, very good job. A lot of definition, a lot of muscle. You can see the translucent resin type material I was talking about. You can see the spikes coming out of the middle of his chest. You can see just the venation. It's perfect detail, and I like how Doomsday is one solid color of darker gray, and they kept that, but they were able to mix it with the texture and the sculpt and a few different grays to really make it pop and seem alive. Going to his hands are probably the coolest part. They are actually about the same size of my hands, a little bit smaller, and I do have big hands. But his first hand on his right, first of all, he has his Wolverine claws, you know, the spikes coming out, but it looks like 4 Wolverine claws, which he has on the other hand as well. But huge fingernails with some great detail on the painting, and I just love the sculpt in it, the position. Looks like he's looking for a weird handshake or to grab your balls off and play with them. So one thing I don't like, and this may be comic accurate, but his hands are way bigger than his head, and I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but you really don't notice unless you're examining this close. Then his left hand, closed fists, and there you really see the Wolverine claws. And again, there's so much detail in this. It almost looks like an old man, and you see the venation in his hand, and it goes up all the way his arms, and it shows that strength and that power. And throughout his arms, all the way up to his shoulders, he has those spikes coming out, and almost looks like warts on his skin. It looks like he has rock type skin, which is what you think of Doomsday because they can't pierce him. And this goes on, and then he has the bigger spikes on the top of his shoulders, which are probably 2 inches in length. And on the back, just as good detail in the sculpt and the muscle, and it's really complemented by the paint. And again, down the middle of his spine, you see those fantastic spikes coming out. And I love the placement of the spikes. It looks random, but it was very strategic, and it looks really good with the statue. So moving on to the exclusive head with the horns, I love both heads, and I don't know which one I'm going to display, but the sculpt on this is really good. So first of all, starting at the top, he's bald, but it almost looks like he has that rock hard skin, almost skin lesions in different areas. Maybe those are new spikes forming, who knows. The horns look great. They almost have this ivory type bone look to them, which matches the spikes coming out of his head and the rest of his body. And It's very, very cool. Words can't even describe it. Then the spikes are behind there, behind the horns. They're below his chin like a beard, and his teeth look really cool. He kind of has this smirk, and it's hard to tell, but on the inside of his mouth you can see his tongue, and there's some great tones and texture in there that makes it look alive. And then right around his eyes, very cool. His eyes on his other piece are cooler, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And then I love the different colors of gray that they mix throughout. It's very, very cool. Then the collector's head, which I also love, has a lot of the similar features. To me, the mouth is a little more closed. The nose is quite different. It's a lot wider. Not white, but wide as in length. The spikes are kind of in the same place. It's a little bit different on his forehead. They're not as long. But I love the little... I don't even know what to call them. I don't know what to call them. The things over his eyes. The things kind of protecting his eyes. Looks really neat. And then his head's much different. There's actually hair, which I don't like the hair, but I'm not really staring at it. It's the one thing I don't like on this statue is kind of that white hair, but again, I know it's decently comic accurate. But overall, another very, very cool head sculpt. I would be 100% happy displaying either of them, so I'll probably switch them out on a regular basis. So that's my review of Doomsday by Prime 1. It is a very, very cool piece. I hope you enjoyed it. I have quite a few statues coming next week too, so I'm very excited. If you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Drop a comment, get my rating up there. I just started this channel a month ago, and I'm going to do a pretty big giveaway actually. I'm going to give away about a $500 statue pretty soon. So stay tuned for that, and with that, take care. Talk to you soon.